Hello and welcome to the No Flipping Excuses Show, the only podcast in real estate investing that teaches what you need to know to find and flip deals right now. Wow. Break free the chains that are holding you back and join us on this episode with Jason Lucchesi.
Hey, what's up? It's Jason Lucchesi and welcome to the No Flipping Excuses Show. I've got a great episode in store for you, and we're going to be covering some really great stuff about real estate investing. I have a really good friend of mine. I've known him for, I think, 10, 11 years now. And we met when we were both getting started flipping short sale properties. And Clint's been doing a lot of amazing things in his own business. And I wanted to get him on here because we're not only friends, but Clint does some amazing things. And I wanted to get him on here. So Clint Keller, everybody, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, man. How are you doing, bud?
I am doing good. Thanks for joining me on here, man. We've done a lot of business over the years together, and I wanted to get you on here because you've got like this awesome thing that you've got going on in your world down in Evansville. And for people that aren't familiar with that, it's about 3.5, 4 hours south of where I am. And Clint's just rocking it out over there. We've done some deals together. We've coached and mentored people over the years, and Clint's doing some really cool stuff over there. So I wanted to bring him on because he's doing some of those amazing things, and we want to get more folks like that on our show. So Clint, for people that don't know about you, could you just tell folks just a little bit about like who you are and what you're doing?
Sure, man. Yeah, so thanks for the introduction, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
So my name is Clint Keller, and like Jason said, I live about 3 hours away from him in about southwestern tip of Indiana, in Evansville, Indiana. And I've been investing in real estate for probably since 2006, so 12 years or so. And I've been doing it full time since around 2008. Just kind of a quick background of kind of where I got to that point. I actually went to the University of Southern Indiana, and I graduated with a finance degree. And while I was actually in my finance classes at USI, I was studying the old Carlton Sheets books. If you remember those books from way back when, I'd be studying those in my finance classes and actually looking at how to buy houses. And during my last year at college, I actually was buying houses while I was actually in college. And from there, it just kind of was a domino effect that took place. After I bought my first one, I remodeled it. I actually tried reselling it. I couldn't resell it, so I rented it out. And I actually sold that house that I owned for about 11, 12 years, actually just about 2 or 3 months ago. So I've owned that one this whole time.
Wow.
But from that first one, what I did is I bought it, I remodeled it, I didn't sell it, I actually refinanced it, pulled that money out to buy the next one. And then that next one, I guess the first one was the learning curve, but the next one was one I made the profits that actually could kind of be like a domino effect, where I actually build up enough cash to kind of do a lot of different things that I'm doing now. But since that time, I've bought over 200 houses. So I've done everything from short sales to the REOs to the HUD properties that me and you actually did the government loophole magic program on.
Yep.
Tax liens, tax sales, bought non-performing notes, performing notes. So there's a whole array of things that I've been involved in. And I'd say here recently, my strategy's kind of changed, but that gives you kind of a quick background of where I started from and kind of what I've done and where I've came from, basically.
No, that's awesome, man. And I guess one of the new terms that's out in the arena is the whole BRRR method, and that's something that you and I have been doing for years now. And I guess it wasn't a term or some jargon that was out back then, but we've been doing the whole buy, rehab, rent, refinance model for a very long period of time. And that's something that you were just like, that just kind of came off and you were like, man, I'm just going to do it like this. And the BRRRR method wasn't even out back then. So it's pretty cool that you discovered that.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's been around for years. It's just somehow those four letters are starting to resonate with people. So let's I love that you discovered as you were getting your degree that you were learning good old Carlton sheets. And, you know, I was the same way, where I was actually a senior in high school. I remember staying up late at night and seeing the backdrop of the people with, you know, they're in Malibu or whatnot. And it looks like, man, I want to be interviewed by Carlton, you know, flipping properties. So tell us, you know, you've done obviously a lot of deals, and one of the deals that you and I could talk about real quick, it wasn't a recent deal, but we could kind of give people a frame of some of the things that we've done and got really creative, because you're known for doing creative stuff. You know, like that one property that we bid on, it was a HUD home. You may want to talk about this a little bit, but I think we essentially got it for what, $285 or $385, and then we put it under contract, like a land contract.
Yeah. Okay. So that one was a HUD property. And for people that don't know what HUD property is, basically it's a property where somebody has FHA financing and they've defaulted on their financing. And basically HUD is the department that basically insures the mortgage holder for that loss. So if they default, then HUD basically ends up selling the property. So HUDHomestore.com was one of the sites that I actually still use to this day. As one of my buying strategies. But that specific deal, yes, I ended up getting the purchase price was, I believe, around $1,100. But after commissions, like I'm actually a licensed real estate agent too.
Right.
So I got, I believe it was like $1,100 commission or something like that. And then they gave me a property tax proration. By the all said and done, I ended up being out of pocket like $100 for a house that I turned around and sold on an installment land contract, which is still performing to this day. I still own that property, and I sold that for $25,000, basically the same day that I bought it.
And did that lady put down a big deposit too?
Yeah, that's been probably 5 or 6 years ago, but I think she put down around $3,000 to $5,000.
Yeah.
And you know, if I'm buying it for a couple $100, I mean, it's basically an infinite return.
Yeah.
So yeah,
it really was, because you paid. I think what I remember, it was under $100. So and you had that deal locked up with her before you even bought the HUD property, right?
I had the property under contract for that price. And then I closed, and I just basically had a kind of a verbal agreement with her before I closed on it. And then we just did like a same day type situation since it was a contract sale. Yeah. But yeah, that was a good one, man. There's been a lot of those HUD properties that have been home runs for me, really, where they weren't necessarily contract sales. They were sometimes wholesale deals where you get them under contract for a certain price. And sometimes I wouldn't do a contract sale. I'd do a wholesale deal, but I'd have an investor, a cash investor, that would be willing to buy it for more than what I was buying it for same day. I mean, it'd be basically me buying it and selling it within 10 minutes.
Right. And
I still do wholesale deals to this day, but I've kind of got into the arena of, it became more of an income tax strategy for me today, where I still do the wholesale deals if it makes sense. Like if it's a house that needs a lot of work and I don't want to necessarily do any improvements to it and I don't want to sell it on contract, I'll do the wholesale buy and sell same day. But now what I focus on is more the long-term income tax strategy game, because you're doing those deals all the time and you're building up your cash, but you're having to pay the income tax on all of those deals. So I mean, I'm looking at it for both ways. I do a lot of the wholesale deals still, but I do a lot of the buy and holds too. But the HUD properties are good either way, man. You can still get great deals on them too.
Well, the great thing with the whole buy, rehab, rent, refinance thing is when you refinance, all of that money that you could cash out, if that's what you're trying to do, is tax-free money. So it makes complete sense to do that method, because you're getting all this money absolutely for free that you don't have to, pay for, as long as you don't sell the property within a certain period of time, to avoid, paying a higher percentage on a capital gains perspective. So, that method is great. So let me ask you this. I had two questions that kind of popped into my head when we were talking about that deal that we did a little while ago. A lot of our listeners are on the cusp of, they're still working a 9-to-5 job. They're fitting in maybe, 2-3 hours after their 9-to-5 job. Do you think it's wise to get a real estate license? Like, do you feel it's something that's necessary?
I can argue both sides of it, to be honest. I can tell you the benefit that I have. I've had my real estate license for probably 7-8 years. And the reason why I have it is so that I have, one, access to the MLS data. Yep. So not only when I'm buying listed houses where I'm representing myself and I can take a commission on the buy side, but I can also do all of my due diligence as far as any other properties that I'm buying, what they're worth once I remodel them or resell them, or what even the cash buyers are buying them for. And I can use it as a ways of tracking down buyers that have bought properties cash in the past, and find out who those are. So, I mean, there's a ton of information that you have access to as a real estate agent. Would I say that it's completely necessary to do real estate investing? No. And the reason why I say that is because I actually think the people that make the most money and do the most, actually make the most impact and make the most money, don't necessarily have a real estate license. Gotcha. They're investors, they're principals in a transaction. So they're actually buying it as the owner, they're selling it as the owner, and they make the spread. Sometimes it's actually good to not be a real estate agent, because you don't have to disclose everything where you're wearing two different hats all the time. So I would say the benefits are access to information. If you can find a real estate agent friend that does have access to the information and can help you with that, that would be an ideal scenario, I would say. I've done it because I do buy a lot of listed houses myself, and I represent myself, and I also have access to the information. So can you do it either way? Yes. Are there benefits and detriments to both sides? Yes. But I would say in my opinion, most real estate agents don't really do that well. I mean, it's usually the top 10 echelon percentage that actually make the most amount of money.
Right.
But you have access to the information. So hopefully that answers kind of your question.
No, it does. It does, Clint, because now you could bid on HUD homes. You don't have to wait on some agent. And, know, especially with HUD homes, Clint, you could talk about this. You need to be on the ball with those HUD bids. If HUD counters, you have a very short period of time to respond back to them. And if that agent isn't doing their best for you, you're losing deals, right?
Yep, exactly, man.
So
exactly.
So like, with a lot of the HUD strategies that you and I taught within our old training program, one of the things is, if you can't find a real estate investor friendly agent to work with you, what do you think about just go get the license, because it's going to help you out dramatically. Like you were saying, you could find deals on the MLS. There's certain search terms that we use that we're able to find deals that not every other investor knows how to find. And having that access, like you said, you could build your whole entire cash buyers database within a day if you wanted to. So do you think, like, from a weighing standpoint, like one outweighs the other? Because I think the only thing that really has to happen when you have the license is the disclosing part, if I'm not mistaken. Right, Clint?
Right. Yeah, right. So in my opinion, I'd say getting your real estate license is a definite huge benefit. I think it outweighs the other side. Yeah. I guess it just depends on your strategy and what you're wanting to do. If you're just wanting to buy just commercial buildings, or you're just wanting to buy apartment buildings, and you're not wanting to do necessarily the so many residential transactions, it might be beneficial to you just to be the investor and the principal. But
agreed.
If you have a friend that you can find that is a real estate agent and can provide you the information that you need, then that solves that problem. But,
it does.
Yeah.
No, I agree with you, Clint. If you've got somebody that's, able to be on the ball for you, there's no reason to get the license. But we've had students over the years that weren't able to find that investor-friendly agent. And that's what I encourage folks, just go get the license. You have to, sit through, you have to do the hours before you take the test, depending on what state you're in. The hours are different for every state. But you just go, you take the test, you're good, you're good. And then for the year, isn't it in the state of Indiana, Clint, correct me if I'm wrong, and I don't want to go too much on the whole licensing thing, but after 12 months, you could actually become your own broker, right? Or is it 2 years?
I believe it is a 1-year seasoning, yes.
Right,
I believe that's
okay.
Correct. Yep.
Cool. So the only way I would recommend somebody to do that is if your strategy is to find deals that are on the MLS and also bid on HUD homes. If you can't find somebody, definitely go get that license yourself. It's I wouldn't say it's easy, but you definitely have to study if you don't know what you're doing. I've gone through. Yeah. I just went through the pre stuff. I didn't actually go and take the actual test to become an agent, but you definitely need to study. So Clint, moving on to some other stuff, you're doing some really awesome stuff from a passive standpoint. What made you realize and made you shift? Because obviously you still do wholesales, but what kind of shifted for you to where you were like, man, I need just cash flow coming in consistently every month?
Yeah. So the amount of income tax that I was paying just kind of opened my eyes to a lot of different options. And so I started to study the tax code and start investing as opposed to how the government actually wants you to invest and how they reward you to invest.
Yeah.
And so what my whole game strategy now is basically how to reverse engineer to where my tax bracket, I don't get way up high into the tax bracket. I start doing a lot more into my self-directed IRA.
Oh, okay.
So it's basically a retirement account. I know you know what a self-directed IRA is. And for those that don't, I won't go into too much detail, but basically Equity Trust is my custodian for my self-directed IRA. And I do a lot of wholesale deals in my self-directed IRA, and I own several rental properties in that self-directed IRA. And the reason why I started doing that is because I was paying income tax every year that was quite large, and I wanted to start building my wealth and my balance sheet as opposed to my cash in the bank.
Right.
So that was one strategy, but what I liked what you said on the beginning of the call, it's kind of similar to a concept where I've heard the concept buy, borrow, die. I don't know if you've ever heard of that concept.
No, I haven't.
But basically, not to plug somebody else, but there was a book that I read. It's called Tax-Free Wealth by Tom Wheelwright. And it's a great book.
Oh, that's cool.
But basically, he goes over, he's one of Robert Kiyosaki's advisors for Rich Dad, Poor Dad, is how I got a hold of him. But basically, he goes off the concept that you buy an asset or assets at a deep discount, you improve them, you rent them out, you keep them on your balance sheet. If you need the cash, like you were saying, you borrow against that asset if you do need the cash.
Sure.
But if you don't need the cash, then you just basically keep building up your balance sheet that way. And if you have to sell the asset, you do what's called a 1031 tax exchange, where you defer the income taxes to the next property, or you buy it in your self-directed IRA to begin with. So why I started doing the rental properties and the passive cash flow is because not only is the government rewarding you by giving you depreciation, but sometimes you can do several other things like a cost segregation analysis, where they'll actually let you go in and value the contents of the property and write that off as additional tax benefit. And so the whole game plan for me was to basically build my balance sheet and reduce my taxes while basically increasing my income at the same point. So it's like, if I do all these wholesale deals and I make all this cash where I'm buying and selling and I have all of these gains, then I have to pay the government 25, 35%, it just didn't make sense to me where I'd have to keep doing that over and over again instead of just doing one deal and letting it cash flow forever, or exchanging it for a different property that cash flows more, et cetera, et cetera. So I still do the wholesale deals and I still love them, and I still do the buy, remodel, resells. But I look at it more now so as a wealth building strategy long term, as opposed to a quick cash in your bank type strategy, if that makes sense.
Totally makes sense, man. Totally makes sense. The passive income strategy is the true wealth creator. Wholesaling properties and rehabbing properties, that's just funds that appears once. Once you sell that asset and you make 30, 40 grand, you're not repeating that from the same asset over and over and over. So when you have these assets and they're producing for you every single month, that's, true wealth. Like, if you wanted to go on vacation for 3-4 weeks and you've got these properties managed properly, you've got cash still coming into you. We call that the mailbox money. And it's coming in regardless of what you are doing. So I truly like that. And for folks out there that feel like they need a bunch of cash of their own to do this, over the years, we've been able to find, banks, private lenders, hard money lenders out there to do this. What have you figured out, Clint, to really kind of be a good source for you to pick up these assets and hold them?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that question, man. So I've got a couple different strategies. Some I'll go over really quick because most people already know them. I'd like to go over a few that maybe actually me and you had texted about before that might be beneficial to your listeners.
Yeah.
But I mean, right now I still actually put out, most people know about bandit signs, where you actually put out your signs in your local area. I actually have somebody that's a competitor. He's been taking mine down. So I've kind of limited that strategy. I'll have them put out like every other month or so. But I still do like the bandit signs type strategy. But some of my favorites that I've seen like in the last year or two, while the market has been really competitive to find really good deals, I've had to kind of take a twist on things on how I go about finding them. One of my favorite ones is actually getting a hold of your local code enforcement officer, or they call them your raise order officer. It's basically someone that goes out and tags a property if you have high grass or high weeds in your property. And some counties I found won't give you that information. They won't give you necessarily a list of raise orders, but what you can do is you can make an introduction to find out who actually is tagging those properties. Maybe take them out to lunch and tell them exactly what you're trying to do. You're trying to buy these properties, remodel them, improve the community, improve the area, possibly resell them. But not only are you going to pay off the raise order or what's attached to the property, but you're going to improve that property's value. You're going to get somebody in the property that's actually paying the property taxes, which is the whole reason for them tagging the property, right?
Right.
So that's one that I found is actually really cool, because properties are getting tagged all over the county and they don't necessarily have mortgages on them. I found some of them are just been vacant by owners that live out of state. And I've been able to buy a handful of them just from that one lead source.
That's awesome.
But other than that, another really good one that maybe somebody doesn't know about is, I know we had the program Asset Manager Millions, right? And in that, you kind of go over the asset manager strategy. Well, I kind of took that to even a deeper level. I would actually reach out to the local community bankers in the area, and not necessarily send them just a message on LinkedIn, but I'd reverse engineer like their email address. Like, for instance, if the bank was Banterra Bank and the guy's name was John Portman or something like that, and I knew that all of the other email addresses were their first name and last name initial at Banterra Bank, I would actually be able to find their email address and email those people directly. So, I mean, you've got to take a couple extra steps to find the person and get in touch with them. But if you tell them exactly what you're trying to do and tell them that you're looking for assets that are, maybe non-performing on their books. Maybe one of their borrowers is not paying on a particular property, and maybe they're not able to make it current on their current loan. You could offer to pay off that loan, get them current, and actually buy the property that way. So that's another strategy I found that actually works, is just going directly to your community bankers. And most of the community bankers lend within the community, so their assets are all pretty much local to you. Another good one was, I think I told you about this, was in the state of Indiana, we have a website called docspop.com. But if you really Google, if you're in a different state than Indiana, all you really need to do is look up court records, search, and your county. So I'm in Vanderburgh County, so I look up Vanderburgh County court records or Vanderburgh County civil records, something along those lines, and it'll point you to the right website to find this information. But what I would do is I'd go on docspop.com, and I'm not one to market. Like, I know a lot of people buy probates and have success with it. I've never had the comfortability of actually marketing to somebody that actually lost a loved one.
It can be tough.
So what I do is I actually would find who the probate attorney is that is representing a majority of the estates in the county, and actually set up an appointment with them and tell them exactly what I'm doing.
Smart.
And they'd actually send me the leads directly, because the whole goal of a probate attorney is to liquidate the estate. And their job is to basically liquidate the estate and get it settled and get everything clean. So they really want to sell the property if there is real estate in that probate. So I've gotten leads that way too. Other than that, I mean, personal referrals just from previous houses that I've bought. I still get leads from pre-foreclosure leads where maybe a borrower is behind 90 days or more on their mortgage payment. And again, that's available on docspop.com or your similar site. Yep. So you're kind of looking for the motivation, basically. You're looking for somebody that's willing to sell or is in a spot where they need to sell or have to sell, or it's vacant. That's another lead, is just driving your area and seeing if there is houses that are vacant, and then reverse engineering that address to find that person, using Facebook to reach out to that person, not necessarily a phone number, but just get that person's name. And I've gotten leads that way too, just reaching out to them on Facebook. And actually, I think that works better because they have a face to go with your name, and they feel a little more comfortable that way, I've found.
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure. And a couple sites that we would recommend if you wanted to use Clint's method, it's called skip tracing. You could go to needtoskip.com, or you could use a site called fastpeoplesearch.com. Needtoskip.com is a service that charges. Fastpeoplesearch.com is gonna cost. It's free, but you're gonna have to do a little bit more research on it. So that's awesome, Clint. And we're coming up to the part in the show to where we need to wrap up here. So Clint, if people want to get a hold of you, I know there's some really cool stuff that you have. You have a couple websites that you wanted to share with our listeners. How can they get a hold of you, buddy?
Yeah, brother, I appreciate that, man. So my house buying website is househero.com. If anybody, I'm actually buying mainly in the Evansville, Newburgh, and surrounding area, but I'll venture even out as far as Indianapolis or St. Louis or Louisville or Henderson, Kentucky, kind of in that area. Yep. I'm looking mainly for apartment buildings now, but I would look at houses, anything that anybody thinks that would be a good deal. And obviously you live in the Indianapolis market, so I wouldn't want to compete with you there.
Oh, no, you're fine.
The other areas, I'd be happy to see what anybody has as far as apartment buildings or even houses if they feel that they are a good deal. My other website, if anybody wants to follow me on my newsletter to follow kind of the deals that I'm doing and any updated strategies that I have, you can go to clintkeller.com. That's spelled CLINTKELLER.com. And
what was the first one again?
Househero.com.
Househero.com. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So we've got househero.com. You could go check out for Clint, and you could also check out if you want to stay updated with what Clint's doing, which I highly encourage because he's doing some really creative things. And sometimes with this business, you have to think outside of the box, and Clint is one of those guys. So make sure you go to clintkeller.com. We'll have that in the show notes so that you could go click on it, become an email subscriber, and then you could receive some of the latest updates of what Clint is doing deal-wise and what he's seeing in the market as well. But Clint, is there any parting words that you have for our listeners, my man?
No, man, I just appreciate you letting me on the podcast, man. You're rocking it. It sounds like you're doing really well with the podcast, man. So congrats to you, man.
Yeah, thanks, buddy.
I appreciate it.
Really appreciate it. Glad everything is doing well for you as well. And for our No Flipping Excuses listeners, if you enjoyed this show, make sure you go leave us a 5-star review. We went over some really, really great topics on today's show. We gave you a breakdown of exactly what to do for finding folks, finding good deals, what to do if you don't have a license and you're unsure of what to do. It has been broken down. So make sure you leave us a 5-star review. Leave us a comment on iTunes. We would really, really appreciate it. And if you need anything whatsoever, you can contact us at support@jasonluchesi.com. And that's SUPPORT at jasonluchesi.com. And that's JASONLUCCHESI.com. But thanks for being with us today. We will see you on the next No Flipping Excuses show. Take care.